Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 11th edition of the Toronto Black Film Festival. Created, are we? Is did some? That's weird. I'm gonna turn the mics off. Okay, I did. I'm gonna start over again. Welcome, everyone, to the 11th edition of the Toronto Black Film Festival, created by the Fabienne Collat Foundation, presented by TD in collaboration with Global News. The Toronto Black Film Festival runs from February 15 to the 20th, 2023, online and in person. You can find the complete program and grab your online all access pass, in person pass, and individual tickets on torontoblackfilm.com. Thank you all for joining us. Before we begin, we acknowledge that we are on a traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. My name is Leandro Matos. I'm a Latino screenwriter based in Toronto. I'm originally from Brazil, and I've been a permanent resident in Canada since 2018. I have over 150 produced scripts in my career. My latest feature film came out in theaters just last week, and my next show will come out on Disney Plus sometime this year. I also work at the Fabienne Collat Foundation, coordinating all debates, which means that I basically invited myself today. Um, Today's panel is entitled Script Supervisor, the Unsung Hero of the Set. Continuity is key to making a movie work. There's nothing worse than watching a film and finding mistakes, different costumes, color changes, things out of place. These are just a few things that a script supervisor must be attentive to while working on set. So we're talking about continuity here, and we have an amazing group of people that I'm gonna ask them to introduce themselves. So Andy, would you like to start?
You can hear me all right? Okay, perfect. My name's Andy. I am from the GTA and I have been script supervising since late 2021. And prior to that, I had many opportunities to shadow other senior script supervisors in the GTA area, which I'm very grateful for. Um, Late in 2022, I became a permit of NABET 700, which is one of the unions based in Toronto. And I'm very proud of myself for that and super excited for what's to come in 2023. And thank you so much, Leandro, for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm happy you're here too. Dawn, would you like to go on?
Hello, I'm Don Gilliam, and I'm a veteran script supervisor. I mainly do feature films, but I do television and commercials. And thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Happy you're here. And Andrea, now you.
Hi, I'm Andrea Maxwell. I'm from the GTA, but currently residing in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been script supervising for about 5 years. So I'm in the middle of everyone. Love the job, and I'm looking forward to this panel, and thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you all for being here, and let's just dive into the subject. Dawn, I'm gonna ask. I know I know you're a trainer. You train script supervisors too. So I'm gonna start with that question because I think you're gonna be perfect to answer it. What is the role of the script supervisor, especially because we have a lot of emerging filmmakers in our audience? I think some people might want to actually know what the script supervisor do.
Okay, the role of a script supervisor is to write down what the camera shoots. So those notes go to the editor, so the editor can put the film, commercial, TV show together. We're responsible for matching and continuity, and we're also to preserve the screen direction and to support the director's vision. So it is a job that has two components. Half of the component is paperwork, and the other half is filmmaking.
Okay, good. Andrea, Andy, would you like to jump in and add something? I mean, only if you want to.
I totally agree. She's 100% on that. I also find people management is also a big part of working as a script supervisor, making sure that everybody's feeling heard and understood. Sometimes directors will talk to you and ask you, well, does this make sense? We'll ask your opinion on certain shots, or just does the whole scene even make sense? So that's an interesting piece that is part of our job too.
Yes, Andy?
I would also like to add that from my very short time script supervising, one of the things that I've learned from other script supervisors is that it really kind of is our role to act as that last line of defense on set when it comes to supporting other departments. We don't have to do their job, of course, but it's really nice to have a script supervisor on set to kind of be there to watch everything, like, watching the props or hair, makeup, wardrobe, set deck, just to make sure that, if something has been overlooked or missed, there's one person on set who really is dedicated to watching out for all of those tiny little things that can make a huge difference in the editing room.
Cool, cool. So, and where does the work begin? What is the starting point for the script supervisor? Anyone want who would like to? Yeah.
Go, Andy. I'll let you go.
I would just say, like, for me personally, it's the day that you get the job. Because the second you get the job, I mean, myself personally, the first thing I do is start reading the script if they are able to send it to me. The sooner that you start working on it, the more time that you'll have to better understand the script. And of course, it is definitely important to only work if you're being paid for it. Like, so in our profession, we do have preparation days, which we would use to make sure that we're ready for the very first day on set to answer any question that anybody has. But it is really nice to get your hands on the script as soon as possible so that you can start going through it, because essentially, as a script supervisor, you need to know the script better than anybody.
Sure, that's true.
I agree. That's exactly what it is. The sooner the better.
Andrea, anything to add? Okay. So you mentioned the script, like getting the script as fast as soon as you are hired. What is the importance of having a good understanding of script writing to be a good script supervisor? Is it important?
I would say yes. At first, you don't really maybe not understand story structure. But as you start to read the scripts and you start to see a pattern on how to screenwrite and how things are laid down, it is laid down in a certain format, depending if it's a television or a film. And the more you have to read more scripts. You can't just, when you just get started, you have one script and you don't really know the pattern of other scripts or screenwriting. It'll help emotionally. It helps with dialogue. Sometimes that when you get to some of the films that I've worked on is like I can tell when the dialogue, if they're creating something on set that doesn't really go with the flow of the actual story. Sometimes the director is too busy and he just, oh yeah, that sounds good. And then I have to say, no, it really is, that character really wouldn't talk like that. So knowing story structure, understanding characters, understanding plot lines, I think just adds to you being able to be part of the creative process with the director.
True. And I can add to that, Dawn. I'm a writer, but I did work as a script supervisor a little bit in my career because I trained when I was living in Vancouver. And there's one thing that us writers do, we don't describe necessarily everything that is a continuity from one scene to the other. So when you understand story, when you understand the script, and you know that I don't know, I'm gonna give an example. Like the last scene, the character is walking. It's raining outside, and he's like holding an umbrella. The next scene, if the character arrives at a place, even if you don't talk about the umbrella in the script, you as a script supervisor know that character is still holding the umbrella. And glasses, it's something that I mean, it's a thing as well. So I agree. I think, and the fact that I was a writer before I was a script supervisor, even, I mean, I have very, very, very little experience as a script supervisor. But I remember that I talked to the ADs of the films that I did, and they were like, "Your breakdowns were really good," because I understood the continuity of the story, even if things were not necessarily on paper.
Yeah. And that's the things that you do in prep, or, before when you get hired and you get the script. Those are the kind of things that you are looking and pointing out, because also understanding story and a lot of revisions, certain little things get dropped off, and so pointing out the inconsistencies, especially if a script has been kind of revised and you got different writers coming in and out and stuff like that. We are there to catch those little continuity questions, or to ask. And sometimes it's, it used to be blue all through the script and they decided to make it brown. And then one scene is blue and, a couple of later it's brown, because of a rewrite. So yeah, the more that you understand the story structure of a screenplay or teleplay, the better.
Andy or Andrea, would you like to pitch in?
Yes, revisions are very key, key to making sure, especially with separate writers. I was on a project last year, and that was an issue because there were several writers and then several revisions, and then things would get dropped and missed. I'm like, well, what about? And what about? Well, what about? And they're like, oh yeah, because it was different people writing. So to keep it, making sure that we can keep track of these things is very key.
True. Okay, so and then after talking about script, I'm gonna go to talk about the director. Do you talk to the directors before accepting the role? And what are you looking for in those conversations when you're talking to the director? Are you looking for a connection to that person, an understanding that they have the same work ethics as you? What are you looking for?
That's interesting. So I can take you down the path, my thinking, and the way that it looks. When you get like a call to do a job, and they may or may not tell you what this project is about, but you should, if they give you the director's name, you should go look them up. Go look them up. Go see what credits that they have. Are they seasoned, or that type of a thing. When I'm in the meeting with the director, I'm more, you can't tell, some people interview good and some people don't. Some people audition good and some people don't, but they can do the job, that type of thing. So interviewing, I always feel like I feel corny. Everyone is always on their best behavior. So I can't really take anything or come up with the conclusion about the director. But what I do talk about is I like to talk about the things that are important to me in doing my job. I try to talk technical the whole time. I talk about the project, and hopefully I've read the script. And then if I do, I talk about certain scenes in the script. Like, oh, I like that scene when it did. I can't wait to see how you gonna do it. Or I was like, oh, I was really surprised at the end. It's like, oh, this is really good. So I talk about the project, and then I will ask more technical questions about my job, like how I handle things. And so I just do it like that. Because some of them say, I go, I'm really strong in screen direction. They go, oh, I'm strong in screen direction too. Then we get a conversation about screen direction. So that's kind of how I do it. But I can't judge who somebody besides, you do your research, you find out who they are. But I don't, I just wait until I work with you. Then I'll have an opinion if I'm going to work with you again.
Okay. And Andy, I know you're like, I think you're like the newest script supervisor of the group. I mean, besides me with my very little experience. But how is the conversation with the director for you?
Okay, so in my experience, because I have worked in the non-union world, like the more indie side of things, and also on the union side, for almost every non-union project I had, like realistically, most cases you don't always get a chance to like converse with the director before you even end up on set. Sometimes the first time you see them is when they are shooting the first scene. So that makes things a little bit more, I guess, exciting because you don't really know who you're going to get and you kind of just have to work with the situation at hand. It's always really nice to be able to meet with a director beforehand. And again, it's nice to just kind of break the ice because this is a person that you're going to be sitting beside, for hours and hours. They're going to become like your family because you're going to spend more time with them than you will with your own family at home. On some sets. So yeah, it's really just a nice thing to have is like those conversations with the director about their script. Sometimes, or like the one time I did have an interview with a director, and it's nice because sometimes they will be vulnerable with you in the interview and they'll tell you kind of what they would like for you to help them with. So it's really nice to have that information before you end up on set because then you can kind of know what to focus on or what's more important to this particular director.
Andrea, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I'm in a room where it's motion detector lights, so so I have to get up and move. When I'm still, it'll just get dark after a while. So I'm sorry about that. But I do agree. I haven't had a lot of experience meeting directors beforehand because I'm non-union, and so, but I have done several projects with a specific director, and he has called me to do projects. So like that particular person, I know him inside out. I know exactly what he's going to say. I know exactly how he's going to act. So there's a comfortability with him and I that knowing how he is, it's good. I do like to, the first day, I do like to ask them, how can I help you the best? What do you want me? What are you looking for from me in this role for this project? So I ask them that. I get a lot of feedback, and I do ask, make sure that, like Don says, you let them know, what would be missing, what you'll be concentrating on after you read the script and stuff, and what have you. So, like I said, I do ask them, how can I help you the best to make how to make your movie the best? So,
I would like to add one thing.
Sure.
So since, and this is for the up and coming directors, because it is a shame that in the non-union world or independent world that you're not meeting your script supervisor before you start a project. I'm sitting here, I'm going to sit here as a veteran filmmaker, and I'm going to tell the up and coming directors, you should be having an interview if you can't interview, or because you just like you might be on a low pay, low budget and you need a training script supervisor, take that time to introduce yourself because this person is going to have your back. Take the time to introduce yourself to the script supervisor. This is the up and coming filmmakers and directors, and if you're a producer, take the time to get to know the script supervisor because you are depending on this person to help your project, but you don't have enough time to meet them. So it will be my thing. So this is something that I will be doing all through the thing because I've been at it for a long time, and I have the pleasure of working on at a certain level because I've been doing it for so long. And no matter what, we have to start to, as script supervisors, beat our own drums and start to say the things that we see. I think it's a shame that these young ladies have worked on these projects for a couple of years and haven't met the director before they start a project. I've never done that, except for maybe on a commercial or something like that. But as far as long form TV shows, yes. meet your script supervisor. Get the conversation going, because you're expecting this person to catch things that you're not seeing. You expect this person to have your back, but you don't have time to meet them.
Yeah, that's true. And I will take that answer and jump into another question, which is regarding that. Do you think that the three of you, do you think that you get like the role gets enough recognition for its importance? Because it is a vital position on a movie set. Do you think it gets enough respect and recognition for it?
No,
I'll let them answer, and
no,
then
I really don't, because
tie it up with.
yeah, I meet a lot of people and I tell them that I'm a script supervisor, and they're like, "What's that?" Many people do not know what a script supervisor does, the importance. It's funny. I was binge watching Community a little while back, and they did a little show about them filming something in the college, and they had a script supervisor, and that was one of the first times that I heard it explained, and I'm like, thank you, this is what we do, because you don't really see it anywhere. Anybody even telling you that a script supervisor exists in film, television, commercial world, nobody know very rarely people know what we do or who we are.
Okay, so all right, this comes in a couple of parts. Why people don't know what script supervisors do. I put the onus on script supervisors because we have not gone out there to the film schools, to directors guilds, to producer guilds, and doing any kind of presentation. Every now and then you might get asked to talk on a panel like this, or go to a film school and talk once a year, that no one can get a grasp of what we do. I put the onus on script supervisors for not pulling together and going and doing presentations and beating our own drums at the places where people might go, oh, okay, yeah, script supervising, that's an option. So that's the first thing. I put it on script supervisors, but we are changing that now. Out in Los Angeles, we are about ready to launch our apprenticeship program. In the UK, they do have assistant script supervisors, but I would have to say, because I've talked to them, the British don't really talk that much. They're really quite close to the chest, and so I was trying to get them out that we have to do presentations. We have to beat our own drum and let people know exactly what it is that we do, and we just have not done that. And to me, that's why we're where we are today. And so, as far as yes, most of the people that are on set they look like, we're anywhere from 35 and up. It is not just to script supervising, but it is. It can even be for the director. Look how young directors are looked at. He's the director, he's the top, or they're the top of the, they're the top honcho. But behind the scenes, people are like, this young dude. That'll always be like that. People will always look at the younger of whatever you're doing and going, what does he know? I've seen it with one example that I can always remember is that we were working with J.J. Abrams, and we were doing Mission Impossible 3. He had an older second unit action director, and so he had set this thing up and thought he had set a scene up, and we were all kind of working close by. So we go over there to see what the guy did, and he was like, oh, and then JJ went in there and goes, yeah, it was very simple. Woman coming around the corner, going up the steps. And that's basically what she looked like she's doing. She's walking with a little thing. She looks around the corner, and then she goes up the steps. When JJ went in there and got finished with it, he had the girl, bang, looking around, going, and then she goes up the steps. He changed it like that. And that guy was quiet from then on, but he was trying to oh, look, I got this, Sonny. And then he turned it around. It will always be that. And I think it's in any industry. If you're young looking, you're new to it, they think you don't know nothing. And so all you can do is do what you do. Improve yourself. Like you said, at the end of it, they'll be like, oh, yes, but yes, it'll always be like that.
Yeah. Anyone wants to add anything? No. Okay, so since we're talking about the expertise of the script supervisor, what is the fundamental expertise that a script? I mean, I'm maybe that there isn't just one, but what are the fundamental expertises that the script supervisor must have to be good at the job?
Yeah, I think the attitude is to be a filmmaker. Half the job is paperwork, and yes, that paperwork is very important. That needs to get to the editor so they can put the thing together. But I think the technical part of it is, being a filmmaker and understanding and knowing that camera and understanding editing. And it's something that you can learn as you go. But if you really want to be helpful, if you really want to be above, the mark when you're just starting out, I would say knowing editing and knowing directing and understanding the camera would be three things that I even taking a course or a class or, go to YouTube in university, as they say, and like learn about these things so that you can definitely have a broader understanding of the filmmaking process and filmmaking.
Andrea, would you like to? Oh, yeah.
I agree with that. Editing, that was one thing I didn't realize how important it is to know how one scene cuts into the other. And if you don't know that, you can watch a scene and not think about, if you're not thinking about, okay, like you said, with the umbrella situation, if you're not thinking ahead of how this is going to move into the next scene or where that person's coming from or going to, a lot of things will get lost and the editors can't save it if it's not filmed. So yeah, you could, and nobody likes to go and reshoot. That's not happening. So it's better that you go ahead on and say, well, why don't we, and ask the director, would it be good if, have you thought of, I pose everything to the director as a question to say, not to tell him what to do. I'm not telling him his job, but I'll say, well, in editing, do you think this will match up if we don't do A, B, and C? So a lot of times I go, oh yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, you always have to think of how is this going to be in editing? How is it going to be for the editor? So I work very close. I make sure I talk to the editor and make sure, I know exactly what's going on. Like we know exactly what's going on. So therefore, like I said, things when they're cutting, they're able to cut because you can't cut if you don't have it. So yeah.
Andy, what about you?
I would say a good skill to have, which might not be something that a lot of people think of, but if you are a person who doesn't watch TV and doesn't watch movies, then it might be something that you want to pick up, if you are interested in script supervising, just because the more that you personally watch things, then you will gain an understanding of the typical format that is used for particular like forms of media. Like for example, there's kind of a general style in, I'd say, like North American television that is a standard that's used from production to production that people have become used to. I mean, if you watch any Netflix show, you'll notice that they all kind of have like a very similar format. There's a very similar style that they're going for. Particularly in film on this side of the world, we do things like we like to match eye lines so that characters are looking at each other, or we like to use like transition scenes in like sitcoms or television in between scenes. Just little things like that you might pick up on if you are an actual fan of certain shows. And then you'll also be able to see what you like and what you don't like when you personally watch shows, so that when you're actually on set and you see something that doesn't seem right, then you can bring it up to the team and say, hey, like, are we supposed to be doing it that way or something? It might just give you a greater insight into filmmaking as a whole.
That's true. I think watching movies is helpful for all of us. I mean, my work as a writer, it's totally influenced by the things I watch. Andrea, I wanted to go back to something that you mentioned because I kind of feel like it has something to do with one of the questions I had here. Is you talked about talking to the director and posing things as a question, not imposing your opinion to the director. And I wanted to go into like not just the director but the entire staff, like the entire crew of the film or the TV show. Um, because the script supervisor works very closely to every other department, pretty much all the departments. And how do you build those relationships and how do you navigate the requirements of the position? Because we know that sometimes we are, you're, you're telling the person that, oh, the continuity is wrong, like the costume is wrong or the makeup is wrong. And you're pointing now that the person forgot something or did something wrong in regards to the continuity of the scene. So how do you navigate those relationships?
Well, on the first day of set, when I'm there, I do go around, meet people, introduce myself, and let them know who I am and what my role is. And I think I'm a friendly person, so I feel like we get along. I've never been on a set where I didn't get along with anybody. However, the best thing anytime I have to talk about continuity, I my phone is with me all the time, so I'm taking screenshot after screenshot after screenshot. So if I see something off and they say, well, no, it wasn't there. I'm like, well, was it? And then I'll show them the screenshot. I'm like, oh, here it is. And they're like, oh. And even with the director, there's a couple of times that I've said, well, this and this happened. They're like, well, no, it didn't. I'm like, are we sure? Then I come with the phone and they're like, oh, okay. I'm like, yeah. So my phone is with me handily and I pull it out very quickly. I'm like, well, did that really not happen? Here we go. So I'm not going to argue with anybody and there's been times where something has occurred and the director wanted a certain take because they like that performance, even though the continuity wasn't on. And I'm like, hey, I'm just letting you know, this is what was happening. And take 1 and 3, this was happening. And take 2, it wasn't. So, and I'll write it down and pass it on to the editors and they can handle it from there. But I will make sure that I note in my notes, it was discussed with the director. Here is the scenes that he approved or she approved. And that's it. Yeah.
Andy, you would like to jump in?
For me personally, I would say that being on set, especially the first couple of days, it's kind of like your first day at school. Like no one really knows each other. Like there's a lot of nerves going around. Everyone's very excited. And then after a day or two, things kind of settle down and everyone gets into their regular routines and patterns. I like what Andrea said about, introducing yourself to everybody on the first day, especially so that everybody knows who you are. And then from there, like as things naturally go, you'll make friendships on set, you'll become close to people, and then those difficult conversations, they become easier, as the show progresses. And I guess being a professional on set is something that it's a skill that you will acquire, like the ability to have those maybe like tricky conversations with your peers about certain things that are happening. And then as you gain more experience with being in uncomfortable situations, then it'll become easy or like easier as time goes on. So then you won't have to be worried about mentioning things to people. Like it's not really something that I worry about. And I really hope that like other people on set don't, it's not something you should be afraid to do, like to point out things, because ultimately like everyone's working as a team and like mistakes happen and it's good to like just resolve them right away and keep moving.
I couldn't agree more. Dawn, would you like to jump in and say something?
Yes. So, how do you approach people when you have something to say about the continuity and stuff? And I would say that I would take it a step further. First, it starts in your pre-production. If you get the script, the moment that you got the script, and if you can get a crew list, then you should reach out to the department heads and introduce yourself at that time before you even hit the set. So let's say you don't have that time and then you have to do it on the day, then I would, make sure that I would be going into their trailers or something to talk to them about, if you see anything, come up to me and say whatever, because a lot of times people see things and they may, they may be wrong, but at least they may say, hey, I thought I saw them. Oh, thank you. But yeah, that was during rehearsal or whatever. But to open up the door, but to the other department heads to let them know. Now, if something happens on set and there's a problem, I walk up to people. I'm not very loud on set. And so I walk up to people and I say, hey, this is, the hair is off or something. And then I let them go handle their continuity. And even with the director, I don't say really anything to the director. If he is on set, I wait until he's off set and then I will pull his ear. If there is a continuity problem, I write it in my notes to cover myself that, hey, this is what's happened, this doesn't match or whatever. But I don't call anybody out. I walk up to them. And I talk to them one-on-one, but really the conversation starts before I even get to set. It starts in prep where you want to call the department heads. And then I would say to department heads, to people who, the costumers, the makeup artists and hairstylists, if you are on a project, you have a crew list, call your script supervisor. And so you can start to set up some type of relationship of how you want to handle continuity problems, how you want to handle when things are, going really quickly. And I don't want to leave out the prop department. Now, I like when on the type of jobs that I work on, there's a lot of props. So I like when me and the prop in the morning will say, all right, so we're doing this scene. Here's a continuity. Here's a continuity. Here's a check. So I have a lot of a relationship with prop people that we start that up so that every morning we all know what continuity, or this has changed. Or if I hear something where the director says, oh, he wants this. And so he said that he wanted that. Oh, good. So we try to help each other. But to me, the conversation starts in prep or the relationship.
Great. Anyone would like to say anything more? Andrea? Yeah.
I've had the pleasure of working with several people, continuously over the last couple of years. So it's a lot of fun when you walk on set and that person. Like you were saying, it's like school, the first day of school, but it's like, grade 8. You've been with these people a couple of years and you see them, you're like, hey, oh my God. And so it's fun and their work and what they're about. So, being in Toronto for a while there, working with, like I said, I've worked with several people repeatedly and it is fun. And they know, like Dawn says, you have that relationship. So, if something happens, you can look over the screen and look at them and they're like, oh yeah, I saw that. And then they run on set, so it's that relationship building piece is key. When you're on set, and like Andy said before, you're on the set for a while sometimes, sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's 6 months. So it's a minute. So when you build that relationship, it's good. And that, like I said, that you guys, they don't feel like they're being criticized to be forgetting something, but it's helpful. Like everybody's working together.
Yeah. Teamwork. Right. So I wanted to, since we're talking about teamwork and talking about relationships, I wanted to jump into the relationships of the script supervisors with the cast, because the script supervisor, they're not only responsible for the visual continuity of the project, but also the emotional continuity. And since we usually tend to shoot things out of order, it means for the actor, and if you're doing a very heavy-handed dramatic piece, it means that in the same day you're shooting like the beginning of the film, the middle, and the end sometimes. And how do you work with the actors? How do you build that relationship and that trust? Because they need you to point out, sometimes they need you to signal where the character is dramatically in the story of the script. So Andy, would you like to start?
I would say that when it comes to cast members, every actor is different. Like some actors, they all come up to you on the first day and say like, hi, my name is, and please read this out to me, because sometimes I forget lines and sometimes this, and then, you know, right away they'll be engaging with you. Some actors, they might not speak to you for the majority of the time that you're on set. Some actors like really like to utilize the script supervisor as like a backup or extra support system. And then others, they kind of, you know, it's just not really their thing. So it really depends on each actor. Like every single actor is different, you know, because, you know, when they get on set, they have a totally different job than we do, right? Like they're in the zone, like they're focused, they've, you know, memorized their lines, and they do have a lot of responsibility, oftentimes being the face of the project, right? So I think like our relationship to cast should be that we just respect them and like give them the space that they need. And then if they do come up to us, we should be ready with the answer so that they can go back to, you know, what they're doing.
Dawn, would you like to go from there?
No, it's well said. You just, you know, it really is an individual type of thing. You know, each actor either wants to be, sometimes they don't want to be bothered and sometimes they do. Sometimes you have to see how the director wants you to handle the continuity, because sometimes the director doesn't want you to go up to them. So like I always start off with, if it's some word wise, I will, you know, tell the director, and I said, you want me to tell him or you want to tell him? And then, you know, they'll say, I'll tell him, you know, and then they get tired of that and then they send me in there. But it is an individual kind of thing. And then you have to read the room, because there are actors who do not want to be bothered because they are in the zone, you know, but it's that one moment that you're not watching. They say, well, okay, line. So you just have to be, you got to be ready, you know, even though, or the ones that are all very good at their continuity, they're very good on the dialogue. At the end of the day, they tired. And so that's the time when you got to like be very diligent, because you know, they're getting tired and then they'll start forgetting something. But yeah, it is an individual kind of thing. It is one actor. Sometimes they'll tell you in the beginning, sometimes they don't say anything. But yeah, whenever I approach an actor, no matter what, I'm always very, very quiet, because you don't want them, they're in the zone, they're thinking, you know, and you really don't want to pull them out of it.
Andrea?
Yeah, that she's so on. With what I do with the actors, just like the director, I come up this first day, all of them, everybody, I say hi, I give them my name, my job, how can I help you? And I always say, God forbid, in a rare circumstance, if you happen to forget a line or something, how would you like me to handle it? And that I'll ask them. And some will say, I'll say line, or some people will say, if you see me, if a couple of seconds, just jump in. So it's up to them, you know. Even with, I've gotten to run lines with them during breaks and stuff. So that's how I get to know some of the cast, because sometimes we'll sit there and we'll run lines, especially if they know they have a big speech coming on. So I'll sit with them, and they'll, you know, go over and help them practice. Some of them have asked me to sit and talk about the psychology behind the character, what I thought. I'm like, you know, I'm like a psychologist. What do you think? How do you think about that? You know, so I just reflected back on them, because I'm not going to tell them how to play the role. So I'm like, yeah, so what do you think? Oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. And I just keep it moving. Yeah, so I like working with the actors. Like, to me, that's one of the best parts, you know, being able to do that creative piece. But yes, like I said, I've run lines with them. I've consoled them. I was with an actor and his father passed in the middle of the shoot. And my background is social work. So the director was like, oh, he's going through a hard time. Go talk to him. I'm like, okay, you know? So I'm like, you're good. And he broke down. So we had to stop shooting for 2 hours while I sat and processed with him. And you know, he was thankful that I was there and that I helped work through it, because in the show that we were working on, his father passed in the show. So it was like, yeah. So the two things were aligning, and it was rough. And it was rough for him. And when he felt he was doing a good job, he would look for me behind the screen, and I'd look around the screen and be like, give him the thumbs up, because he'll like, how was that performance? And I'm like, like that. So I'm their cheerleader, and they'll ask me, well, how did you think that was? I'm like, well, take 2, you were a little more into it than take 4. I get that you're tired, but if you want to know, and they're like, okay, I get you. So I've had some great interactions with the actors and actresses, and I like that's the fun part. So and God willing, knock on wood, I've had great relationships. I haven't had any actors that gave me any pushback. I've heard horror stories about how sometimes it can be, but thank God I have not had any. So I'm going to keep my streak going.
Yes, Dawn?
I would just like to add for the up and coming actors or who might be watching this also is that, we can be your confidant. We can be your, like she said, a cheerleader, and we're watching you. We're looking at you. I'm staring at you on the screen the whole time. And so we also have your back. So the script supervisor, just as well as the director or the DP who lights you beautifully, we can be your friend, because if you're not matching, your close-up might end up on the cutting room floor because it didn't match. So we can be your ally. We're not your enemy. And I would suggest that for up-and-coming actors, to run lines with your script supervisor if there's time and you're stumbling, or ask the script supervisor what the director is going to give the director thing. We're not trying to give directing notes, but you might want that support. It's like, you have built a trust. You want to build a trust with the script supervisor because I tell the people the truth. So if how'd you like that take? That they do ask. And you want to be truthful, and they may call for another take and say, okay, I'm gonna do it one more time. So up and coming actors, trust your script supervisor. Have a relationship with your script supervisor because they too have your back. We are staring at you. We're watching you.
True.
And we will, and we're there for you.
And also with that, because we're sitting right next to the director, we're hearing what the director is saying. So if we're telling you something, we're not telling you because it's our opinion. We're hearing the conversations. We're hearing what they're saying. We're hearing what they're saying to the executive director, producer. We are hearing it. So when we say, well, maybe you need to pull back on that emotion for that, we're telling you because we're in the know. Oh, it's not our opinion. We're telling you because we're listening. Too, because we are in where we sit, we hear everything from everybody, every department head that comes and talks to the director or we're there. So like I said, like Donna's saying, yes, trust us. We're not trying to harm anybody. Of course, we want a great project just like everybody else, because if our name's attached to it, we don't want any foolishness. So we're not going to tell you to any missteps. So yes, like Dawn, trust us. We're good. We want to help you. That's our job.
Yeah, true. And I keep wondering how it would be for the script supervisor to handle a set like the films from Robert Altman, who had like 25 actors on the same set, and some of them don't want you to talking to them, some of them want to, some of them are like, how do you handle a set with 25 actors, each one with a different personality?
I think that you just really focus on your job. Like I said, the one that doesn't want to talk to you, the moment that, they tired or whatever, or they forgot something, they're going to depend on you. So I would think it's just to focus. It's for me. That's all I can say is for me. I can't have all these conversations outside of my little video village. I have to keep my head focused. So I'm not really a chit-chatty kind of script supervisor and be all friendly up in people's face. That's really not me, because I just have too much in my head that I have to keep focused. And so I just try to be as professional as possible and do my job as something fell, to do my job, and just be ready for when I don't take it personally, basically. If you don't want to talk to me, I'm fine, but I am going to do my job and I will be there, because some actors are just, they're phenomenal. They're great with their continuity. And like I said, they're spot on with their dialogue, but sometimes they just get a hiccup and you don't want them to have a hiccup and you're not paying attention. So I would say with different personalities, the whole crew has different personalities, but to stay professional and to focus on your job and not try to be their friend.
Sure. I'm also another relationship that is very important is the relationship between the script supervisor and the editors. I mean, even the editor is not on set uh, with the crew, but I mean, the work of the script supervisor is, I mean, goes directly to the editor. So, what are the skills that you need to have to help the editing team, and what is the importance of the shared work and talking to the editor and planning how the work is going to be done? Don, do you want to say something? Do you want to start?
Well, it's very important, and I don't know why it's changing, but a lot of script supervisors don't reach out to the editor, and I would say that the editor and the script supervisor should talk also. A lot of times and again, a lot of this starting in prep, but if you can't get there before prep, some make that phone call so that you can have some kind of a line of communication open, because we are the liaison between the set and editorial. They could be an editor that has already worked with the director, so he might know some insight and says, hey, watch for this and watch for that because I've worked with him before. I think that what's also important is to have a system for your paperwork. Nowadays, I've always been digital since 94, but the software and stuff like that started coming 2000s, early 2000s. And it's fine to be digital because, everything is kind of digital and people use computers in post and everything. So the paperwork, so that they can read it, so that they can find things when they do. I think that that's just as important, to have a system. In your paper flow and your workflow you should know when and where they need the information, not be late on the notes, and they need those notes to maybe assemble make sure that the sound is there, make sure, that type of thing. So I think within the paperwork, you can communicate to the editor. And so that would be part of your conversation. Says, yes, I write, if you read my notes, I will tell you if he likes that or if he doesn't like, forgive me for female directors, because we've been saying he and all of that because I think that we're the variety of directors that we work with are male. And forgive me, the up and coming and the female director, I am so sorry, and I am not saying he to exclude you. All right. I just realized I heard myself saying it because I just have worked with more male directors than females, and forgive me. So I'm going to say the director. So, anytime the director, has a note, I let the editor know that, look, it will be in the notes. So it is really important to have a system, and I think from the beginning with everything, we've been talking nothing but communication. It is about communicating. It is about not being afraid. And I don't know, again, I am a different script supervisor, but when I even got started, and I've even heard it, a lot of people don't talk to the editor, and I don't understand why, because that's where our notes go. Why wouldn't you talk to them, or the department? You have assistants, you have, all the, they have a department of 3 or 4 people in there. Why aren't you talking to them? I really don't understand, because our notes go there. And so I think through the history of script supervising, that maybe because it was handwritten, that maybe they couldn't read it, some of the notes, or I really don't know. But I just make it a point to let everyone know, my paper flow and what my notes look like, and what I do, and that if they have any kind of question, issue, call me, and then they become sometimes a source of continuity. It might have been something that the second unit did, and it's not in the notes, and we need a quick answer. I'll call the editor and say, okay, so second unit already shot this. Is the doors, windows up or down, or are the lights on or not? And then we can get a really quick answer because they have the footage. So yeah.
Andrea, would you like to say something?
Yes, I agree with Dawn. I've always talked to editors, and again, that's a thing that is important. I did realize, when Dawn is talking about the different type of software, because there's some software that when I first started in my career, I'm filling out everything on the page that the software has. And then I would talk to the editor like, okay, we don't need this, that. So don't waste your time filling in these parts. This is what we need you to concentrate on. I'm like, okay, cool. So then, I talk to the editors and I'll ask them, what is most important for you in the notes? And like I said, sometimes they don't want a running time count, like they don't want certain things, like I said, certain programs give. So, and then also too, I remember when I first started, my notes were like, novels. So they were like, well, can you cut those down for us? Because I was writing so much and like my full set, 3-4 sentences and things. They're like, yeah, you might need to cut that down. So, thank you, okay, put in the most important things. So editors helped me craft who I am today. And I'm sure moving forward, they'll help me even more. But yeah, communication, you can't over communicate. There's no such thing. So always keep talking to your editors, and you always call me on set. So like you said, something they're like, oh yes, such and such didn't happen with second unit, so please make sure this happens. All right, fine, let's get it. So yeah.
And I think it's a balance as a script supervisor, again, with my very, very little experiences. How much is too much on the note, and how we're always trying to figure out, am I writing too much, am I writing too little? It's like finding the balance there. It's hard, it takes time doing the job to understand if I'm oversharing the notes or if I'm undersharing. Andy, would you like to say something?
Yeah, so I would just like to add that when you are on set, oftentimes you are the only person in your department. The script supervisor is really a department of one. So the reality of our position, which might be heartbreaking to some people, especially perfectionists, but it's that we actually cannot watch everything. Like it's impossible. Like we only have 2 eyes. Some people have even less. Like we can quite literally only see as much as our brain will allow us in any given second, right? Because we'll be watching the monitor, or we'll be watching set, or we'll be doing it at the same time. And, there's props happening. There's like wardrobe going on, right? There's set deck in the background. Things are moving. Characters are speaking words. So to be able to keep track of all that at the same time, it's like a game. And you're constantly switching from one thing to the next to try to find, what's most important about each particular setup that's happening. And yeah, like we can't watch everything at the same time. We just literally cannot. So I'd say one of the good things about being in contact with the editor is that you can have a better understanding of what's more important to be watching for the particular production that you're working on. Because some productions, they might be really focused on props because it's a murder mystery and the objects that the characters are holding is really integral to the the script. It's different for every single production, but I just say like do the best that you can, and corresponding with the editor is always great because then they can give you feedback on your notes, and then you'll have a better understanding of what to watch for. And maybe if some things aren't as important for that particular show, then you can kind of divert your energy to other things that are more important.
Very good. We're getting to our final questions. I wanted to also ask you, do you see enough diversity in this position? Do we see enough representation from diverse groups? Like, is it growing lately?
All right, so I'll take this one because this is what we've been doing for the last 2 years. I wanted to say in 2020 during the pandemic, I did a program with Netflix when they were trying to introduce producers and Netflix executives to a diverse department head because we are a department head. And so when I was doing those meetings, the producers kept asking me the same thing about. When you're going to have assistants, when you're going to have an apprenticeship program. A lot of you are going to be retiring and there might be a big gap. And so I found that very odd. So I started to look into the numbers, and script supervising as a craft, we are not growing. And so that was really shocking on the union level. And so we contacted, through the pandemic, we had meetings with other union script supervisors up in Canada as well as in New York. And we started to talk about our craft. The craft is for us about 64 years old, and we have not had we've never really updated it, but filmmaking has changed. And so we are looking to expand the department because of the workload. So what we did is that I reached out to veteran script supervisors and I told them what was going on. And so a group of us through almost for like 2 years, but that first about 5 months, we met every week and we figured out what it would take to update and uplift our craft. And so we have broken off in different departments. And one of them was the apprenticeship program and should be launching this year. So we're really close. And then the next department subcommittee is to expand the department, either using not the apprentices, but using assistant script supervisors or additional script supervisors. And so what we have to do is, because there are some, and there are people in Canada who have used assistants, who do have assistants, and you guys might want to check the contract for IATSE, because I do believe that there is a position assistant. I think just recently I kind of heard that there is an assistant script supervisor. But what the problem is that we've got to learn or have to teach other script supervisors how to have apprentices and how to have interns or assistants or an additional script supervisor, because we also have that on set. Some of the TV shows that work in LA, they use 2 full-fledged script supervisors. One is doing the continuity and matching in the dialogue, and the other one is sitting with the director and doing the camera work, because, as she said, it's humanly impossible to see and do everything when you have 3, 4, 5 cameras going on. So this is kind of where the state of script supervisor is in. We're trying to grow. And then we have another committee, is the outreach for the apprenticeship program, and outreach, like I said before, to go to different places to teach people about our craft, not just like anecdotal, what we do this, but really what skills sets, what it means to have 4 or 5 cameras, what it means to, be on Zoe Log now versus the camera reports, and then, or no camera reports, which makes no sense, because that is part of the craft of filmmaking, is that we need camera reports. So, we need to just go out there. So this is what script supervising in a whole, and we're doing it worldwide. We talk to UK script supervisors as well as those in Canada from 161 and everything. We constantly are trying to talk and uplift and elevate this craft, because it just hadn't happened.
Don, just a little bit. I'm still going to ask you about this. Do you, when you say that there aren't enough people doing it, is that because people don't know that the position exists? And then we go back into the beginning of the conversation when you said that we're not talking enough about the position. Why the numbers are not growing?
I think it's because it's kind of been a niche kind of craft and people haven't been talking about it. But now that the studios they came with the DEI initiative that they are trying to go to the unrepresented groups. And this is where the apprenticeship type programs will be helpful, and having outreaches and going to the unrepresented groups to let them know that it's there. So it's kind of a combination of both. I think it's like it's kind of like the myth of Hollywood. It's like, oh, it's hard to get into Hollywood. And to a point, yeah, it is. I mean, I didn't know nobody, but there are some people, there's nepotism and stuff like that. And so now is the time, because of all the DEI initiatives around, and that each studio has adopted, or they're adopting their own diversity programs to start reaching the unrepresented groups. And because there's only been one person on the set, besides when you have a second unit or area unit or another unit, then it's hard to diversify. But if we're trying to expand, the push is to expand the department, not just because we can have more people, is because filmmaking in a whole has changed. 3 cameras, 4 cameras are the norm, and no one really knows what that means to a script supervisor to have to try to take on that responsibility and have an ensemble cast of 6 or 7, and you got everybody talking dialogue, and then you're supposed to watch these cameras. It is humanly impossible. So you're not getting 100% of a script supervisor's talent. There's no way. Even me, I've been doing it a long time, and then some days I'd be like, okay, this is a lot. It's like there's a little too much. So I don't get to work at 100% or 150% like I like to work. So that is really the state of script supervising. I think it's an exciting time, because it is the time for we are going to start shining the light on this craft and how intricate it is, how technical it is, and how knowledgeable that you have to be of a filmmaker to be an impact when we come on set.
It's amazing. Andrea, Andy, what about you?
This job is not easy by no means. Nobody can. I know when I talk to people on set, a lot of people from other departments will come to me. Oh my God, I would hate to have your job. I'm like, well, thanks, but it is not easy. There's people that I've known that have started off as script supervisors and get out very quickly because it's not easy. And I think, but you have to love what you're doing, I think, in order, because it's fun to me. It's not, like I said, it's not easy, but it's fun. I enjoy what I'm doing, the different facets of it. And yes, as Dawn said, there are times when I saw four cameras, I'm like, oh, you'll grab your pearls. You're like, oh my God, okay, it's battle mode. But to me, it's a challenge. I'm like, okay, how many things can I see? And I'm like looking all over, but it sometimes it is very overwhelming. So as far as diversity, when I first started in being a script supervisor in Toronto, there are many times I was the only Black person on set. Period. And there was times where I've worked with directors with a Black director, and the DOP was white, and she felt isolated. But to have another Black face with her, she felt comfortable that we could discuss things and not feel like she was being overshadowed by a more experienced DOP. So representation does matter. Another time I was on set, like I said, another time I was on set in Toronto, I was the only Black crew member, but the main actor was Black. So it was just the two of us. So when we looked at each other, it was like, okay. And they're like, all right. So they felt more comfortable because they saw someone else like them. So it really does matter. And I feel like we do need to grow women. Because Dawn, correct me if I'm wrong, most script supervisors are female?
Yeah, the last time that we did a pay equity study, and at the time, and it's been about 6 years now, it was 90, it was in the either the high 90s or the low, like, or 87 to 90%. It was female. We do have more males. When you, and this is just on the union level, because we're not looking at and then as far as breaking it up to maybe having Latino or Asian, it's very, very low. And then people of color or blacks, it's just a handful. And I think it really is a matter of education and communication, and that no, they just haven't been out there for whatever reason. I really don't know. I just know that when I first got started in the industry, I was just trying to work, and then it was in this last 10 years that I've gotten more involved in negotiating committee, involved within the local, and I started to learn, some of the things, and then I kind of like figured out our plight, because I was kind of behind the scenes, watching and stuff like that. So I think that it has a lot to do with it. People just don't get involved with the locals. I always urge people to do it, or any kind of film group that is out there. You have Women in Film. That would be a good organization to be a part of. I don't know if they're back doing their luncheons or anything, but and that's someplace that Script Supervisors should go, so that we should be present there. We should be a resource of when a up and coming director needs a Script Supervisor, that like, oh, okay, we got a whole group over here, that type of a thing. So I think it's just a matter of that we've just never updated, and I don't know why it was so close. I think people just working, I'm just working, just trying to get the job. So now, because I'm on my way out, I don't know how long I have, but I refuse to leave until I see the craft in a different position, and I see that it's already moving towards that with having an apprenticeship program. And we're hoping that once we get it launched and going, and and we're working with producers, and we're working with the studios, and when everybody figures it out, then other script supervising groups will do, unions and locals will do the same, and start doing more outreach, and start doing more things that are showing what it is to be a script supervisor, and how a director is supposed to use a script supervisor, or how a producer, can utilize the script supervisor, those types of things. But it just takes time, and it takes the dedication to create those type of presentations and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm all about script supervising.
I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna take the cue that you said something to jump to the last question, which is what people should do if they want to try to start in this position. Where should they go, or where should they? How do they train to become a script supervisor?
If you want to be a script supervisor, you should get trained, because you have to have a system, and you can cost people money if you don't know what you're doing, even if it's a student film. And there are a few, it's more in a private sector given by script supervisors. Mostly everybody is working, I think, except maybe one person who's very, very popular, who's been retired for a minute, but is, out there teaching. I would say that you do your homework, and you look at the teacher and see what they've done and stuff like that. And I would just want to let everyone know, no, you cannot learn script supervising in a weekend. It's just too much. It's so much information that you need to learn. So if someone is offering that, maybe you go take another one that took you at least a month, or, that is a couple of weeks or whatever, so that, and then if you want to do like a 2-day, maybe to tighten up, or to see, sometimes, you can learn it one way, and then you go and say, oh, let me go over here and see what they've got going on, but you have a foundation. So training. And then in the meantime, there are about 2 or 3 books on the market in script supervising. You can read those. I suggest go to the library, because they might be in the library, and then you get it for free, because that's what I did. I went to the library. And then you can also, like we said before, take an editing class, take a directing class, take learn something about the camera, cinematography, or pick up those books. and read, and then you can start having your own foundation. But you need a system, and you need to understand how we talk, because every craft has their own lingo. There is lingo that we have that the editors understand, even the director understands, and there's a certain way that we talk, and there's a certain duties that you have to know that are going to be required of you when you hit the set. So yeah, get trained. Training, education is a good thing. So that's what I would say. And as far as where to go, I think you could just Google it, and script supervising, and the different courses will come up. That's my 2 cents.
Andy, how about you? Also, can I just add something? You said that we only have 2 eyes and we only have 2 hands as well. Sometimes I look at the script supervisor like we're noting something, taking a photograph, using another hand to like look for something else. We should have like 5 hands.
We're a master multitasker,
Yeah.
and yes, I think that when it first started out, it was fine, but because of the demands of filmmaking, which is fine, there's nothing wrong with that. If you need to crossboard, or you need to have 4 or 5 cameras, that's fine. But you're asking one person to handle that, and that's where we have to start, beating the drum and saying, this is like, no, we really need help. We need additional help.
So I would say if you're brand new, just starting out, a really good place to start after you have done some sort of training and you're really looking to just get out onto your first project, I would highly recommend working on a student film or like some sort of student project where the stakes are extremely low. Because the reality is, as a script supervisor, if you do miss things or don't catch certain things and they end up, making it past the editor and into the final cut, at least if it is a very, low stakes project, then it's not really going to have any impact on your reputation. And it's usually a good learning environment for you to get started, because most likely on student films, the other people working with you are also brand new in their positions. So they might not have the best understanding of what you do as a script supervisor. On every student film I've worked on, they honestly didn't even understand the notes I handed in at the end of the night. Like, they're like, oh, what is this? We don't know what this is. Like, they're just worried about getting the footage, like in most cases. So that's why it's a really good place for you to start, because the stakes are low and it gives you the chance to take your time and, practice and actually get good at the job before you get super fast or before you potentially advance to like the digital programs that are out there. Because when you are brand new, the reality is you will make mistakes. And even when you're not new, like, mistakes will be made. So it's nice to have the experience, of being on a set and, just getting out there and, learning about all the different situations and scenarios that you can end up in when you're on set. And also just getting a chance to practice like set etiquette and learning the lingo and just feeling out what it's like to be on a set, which can be a whole different experience aside from the technical aspect of this job.
Andrea, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I agree with both Andy and Dawn. The education behind it to get to know what you need to do is very key, because there's a lot of fundamentals that need to learn prior to even getting on set. And even when you get on set, that's a beast of a whole different nation, because you can theoretically do things in your learning, but then when you get on set, it moves fast. Things move extremely fast, and also look at what type of level you're trying to work at. Are you working at, again, student films, indie films, television, $multi-million projects? They all move at a different pace. And baptism by fire is not a way to learn, especially, again, remember, what you're doing is, can cost people money if you don't know what you're doing. So, like Dawn said, wholeheartedly learn all you can, because I'm telling you, she's right. A weekend, and I can say, unfortunately, I tried that, but No, and even where I feel like I'm in 5 years, there's still a lot I can learn. And also know, as a script supervisor, you can always learn. And the unfortunate part is that we are the only person on set. And it wasn't until I was with other script supervisors on set that I learned some other things, because you're solo, you're in this vacuum doing everything by yourself, and people have accepted. But until you meet somebody else and see, oh, well, dang, that's another way. Oh, that's easier. And you may have been working harder, not smarter. So when you can meet other script supervisors, talk with them, see what's going. Don't think you go in there and know everything, because you really don't. I speak with Dawn. Oh my gosh. I know when I meet you in 2020, I was hounding her, like literally. So Dawn, what about this? What about that? And by the grace of God, she helped me through a lot. And like I said, there's other script supervisors that I've learned from. I suggest, if you get a mentor, get somebody who's been in it for a minute and listen to them. Please, I can't stress anymore. Listen to the people who have had skin in the game for a while, because they know what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. And all these programs, another thing, last but not least, learn how to do the job with pen and paper first. All these programs are great until your iPad breaks and you're on set with pen and paper and you don't know what to do. Learn how to do your craft with nothing but your hand, a pen and paper, and your eyes. Because like I said, when things go down, technology can go down, and if you depend on it, you'll be lost. So always learn the fundamentals of this profession first, and then you can expand.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for all of that. We're a little bit overboard with the panel. So I would just like to thank, but the information was so great. It's okay. I just wanted to, again, thank you all for being here. Thank you all so much for participating. Do you have any final words? No.
I think I said everything that I needed.
It was an amazing panel. It was really good. So, with that said, I just want to.
One thing I want to say, as script supervisors, know your worth. Don't just accept anything because it's given to you. Know your worth.
True. Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, with that said, I want to thank again everyone who's watching. This was the script supervisor, the unsung hero of the set panel for the Toronto Black Film Festival. And well, I hope you have enjoyed it and enjoy the festival. Okay, bye.